machines that are crooked, the ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So, let's have trial by combat.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't.
All right, now, yeah, folks. So I'm back. This is interesting because I'm actually switching over to use OBS, and I've had OBS for some time, but I'm doing it to, number one, pull back from some of the streaming platforms. Now, don't get me wrong, they're okay. They're fine. StreamYard, and the one that I've been using maybe for the last few months is actually called OneStream, and it's out of Finland. And I switched because StreamYard, they just all of a sudden from one day to the next up their prices. And I'm not for that kind of business. I guess they figured they were really popular and decided people would just pay. But hey, there's competitors. And this is a lesson about open market, free trade. When it's open, you get competitors, and they often can or sometimes can provide an equally as good or better product. And OneStream did that. But the reason why I'm pulling back is just because how it functions, the mechanics of it. I need to avoid some of YouTube's, I call it shenanigans, because let's be honest, I talk about news that is relevant, that people need to hear. And this thing about how you have to report it, YouTube, because they become so stringent, you can't do breaking news really that well. You have to take some precautions. So on that note, I'm switching. What's up, Donnie? I see you in the chat. I got to figure out how to get the chat up on the screen to configure that, which is not a real issue, but I wanted to do the stream today anyway, just because, hey, it's relevant, it's important. Now, a lot of people don't know we just did a demonstration over here in front of the U.S. Embassy, myself and another American, and we invited a lot of people, Danes, people from the U.S., obviously, and also Danes, and also Greenlandic people, people from Canada, people from Panama, people from a lot of the countries that are actually affected by Trump currently, right now, the administration, and people that are against the circumventing of democratic process. In the U.S., that would be the Constitution. No one has voted to circumvent the Constitution, to circumvent Congress, or any of the other checks and balances like the Supreme Court, these kind of things. But Trump seems to be actively going against them all. And so that's why we did the demonstration. And they're only going to get bigger. They're only going to get louder. And hey, it's going to follow the escalation of the Trump administration. And also, it's going to follow the urgency that the American people have expressed and are expressing every day. But here's the new kicker. The Trump administration's appointees, they seem to, and the news media, right? They seem to be doing two things. Number one, suppressing footage of the live demonstrations in the U.S. and opposite of the demonstrations that are going on around the world to the American people. So in twofold, people outside of the U.S. are being pretty much blocked from seeing a lot of the demonstrations that are going on. Either the U.S. news media is not covering it fairly, or some shenanigans are going on the internet, which I believe is probably both, and vice versa. Americans inside of the U.S. are not being allowed to see the demonstrations outside. There's very poor reporting, and let me tell you, it's getting loud outside, and hopefully I'll continue to see how loud it gets inside of the U.S. through various sources. But I wanted to go back. How's the audio, Donnie? I hope the audio is good too. I wanted to go back and review the Trump administration, because before, when Trump was going out of power, coming out the first time after he served for 4 years, He incited a riot. He incited violence, which he has never been held accountable for. And the U.S. Justice Department is pretending like they're dealing with a non-violent administration. They're pretending like they don't know why the American people would be upset, and they're concerned about things that people are talking about. They're concerned about the anger being expressed out in the streets by the American public. These citizens, they are astonished how anyone could be so angry, and they're asking people to calm down the rhetoric. You don't want to incite violence. Well, let's just take a listen. Let's take a listen to Trump and see what he sounds like and ask the appointees from the Justice Department, have you watched this?
Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence, not honest people. So, over the next 10 days, we get to see the machines that are crooked, the ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail.
Or if you're wrong, you won't get prosecuted because the U.S. government has been circumvented. The processes have been circumvented. I mean, it's very simple. Donald Trump and his stooges shut down the investigation by the Justice Department. They said they were going to do it when they got in office. What president does that? The last one to do it, who was that? Was there one or two? What was the last president that didn't follow the direct orders of the Supreme Court? Who does that? So we know that Donald Trump escaped under the federal government. Under his leadership, he was able to stop the prosecution of his own actions. And these are one of the actions that he blocked, which are just despicable.
Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence, not honest people. So, over the next 10 days, we get to see the machines that are crooked.
Let me pause this for a second because I can see that the video's not falling. Yeah, here we go. I'm going to start it again. Here we go.
The ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So, let's have trial by combat.
All of us here today do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never.
Now you can hear here, Trump readily admits that he believes the last election when he was running for office, or this election, was stolen. When he ran and he lost, he says the system, the election system, the election boards, it didn't work. He claimed himself that it was stolen. It's a very peculiar type of approach because, when the shoe is on the other foot, he says it's absurd, right? Do you know how many American people right now have said the election was stolen? Has the Trump administration even done an investigation about the election? I mean, has he done an investigation about any election, including the one from the past? I mean, not that it would really be valid, because if you're appointing people to actually circumvent the U.S. Constitution and actually circumvent the normal processes, which, you obviously see Trump is not using the normal processes. He doesn't care what the Supreme Court says, right? He doesn't actually care what the past administration said. He didn't care about any of the security warnings from the CIA when it comes to Russia, even while he was in office. I mean, it's ridiculous at this point. But having said that, just listen to what these people are doing. I mean, did they incite violence? Did they incite the violence on January 6th? I mean, All you have to do is listen and decide yourself.
Never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated.
Now,
I know that
he actually told people, he encouraged people themselves to do whatever they have to do to stop the steal. What does that mean? What does it mean? He didn't go to the U.S. Justice Department. He didn't go to the Supreme Court. He just went out there and did a speech where he encouraged these people. And he was the president of the United States when he did it.
everyone here will soon be marked. People really came up with, we will stop the steal. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether...
Now he knows, he admits, he knows what they will be doing. He admits that. Was that peaceful though? Was Jan 6 a peaceful demonstration? By his definition? I don't think so.
Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country. Our country has been under siege for a long time.
We are gathered at a time when democracy is in crisis. Recent polling shows that 39% of Americans believe the election that just occurred, quote, was rigged.
How many did he say? What percentage was that?
Believe the election that just occurred at a time when democracy is in crisis. Recent polling shows that 39% of Americans believe the election that just occurred, quote, was rigged.
Okay, 39% by his own testimony. 39% of Americans believe that the election was rigged. Yeah, so what? That's not the majority. And on top of it, he's conceding that that's enough for him to assume that it must be true, right? I mean, these are the words of these officials. These are the actual words. Now, if you're out in the street, what is it you're doing right now? How many Americans right now, by the polling, believe that the election was stolen? How many Americans, I mean, do they even go by polling? How many Americans right now believe that Donald Trump is not doing what they thought he would do when they elected him? Do these polls really matter to these people anyway? It only seems that it matters when you're lock and step in agreement with what they're saying every step of the way. You know, is that democracy? Is this democracy?
You may not agree with that assessment, but it is nonetheless a reality for nearly half the country.
Madam Speaker, I have constituents outside this building right now. I promised my voters to be their voice. In this branch of government, which I now serve, it is my separate but equal obligation to weigh in on this election and object. Are we not a government of, by, and for the people? They know that this election is not right, and as their representative, I am sent here to represent them. I will not allow the people to be ignored. Madam Speaker, it is my duty under the U.S. Constitution to object to the counting of the electoral votes of the state of Arizona. The members who stand here today and accept the results of this concentrated, coordinated, partisan effort by Democrats, where every fraudulent vote cancels out the vote of an honest America, has sided with the extremists left. The United States Congress needs to make an informed decision, and that starts with this objection.
Oh, she said the United States Congress. Where's the United States Congress now? Any type of votes coming up besides, they want to have a vote to extend the tax deductions or the a tax relief on Fortune 500 companies, billionaires basically. They want to give another tax cut for the wealthy of the country. People should be I'm sure people are worried, actually. It's not even that people should be. People are outraged about this. Now, let's
New today,
now let's go on to what's happening now. So we already saw what happened before, right? Let's check out what they're saying now. Now that they're back in power, let's look at what they're saying.
direct message from Attorney General Pam Bondi to a sitting member of Congress for comments about Elon Musk. Let's take a listen.
Now you have this Congresswoman Crockett who is calling for attacks on Elon Musk on her birthday. Let's take him out on my birthday, she says. And yet she turns and says, oh, I'm not calling for violence. Well, she is an elected public official. And so she needs to tread very carefully because nothing will happen to Elon Musk. And we're going to fight to protect all of the Tesla owners throughout this country, and it's just basic safety.
Were they concerned at all about the safety of Mike Pence? No. They had a mob on Jan 6 in front of this president that she was appointed by, that she serves under, directed a mob that went to the Capitol. He even told them, if you don't fight like hell, you won't have a country left. These people took those words literally, and he still calls it peaceful. They had a hangman rope outside calling for the hanging of Mike Pence. And he was the vice president. He was the vice president. They called for that. Then they stormed the Capitol violently. We all witnessed it. The whole world witnessed it. Where is her objection to that? This is gaslighting, among other treasonous things. This is ridiculous. And I know for a fact, if I was in the U.S. right now, they would probably be chasing me down. They would probably be trying to find out who I am. Even though I'm not hiding who I am. Born and raised American citizen. Both sides of my family come from the colonial period, the initiation of the colonies, right, of the United States. A lot of these people's family members don't even go back that far. A lot of the talking heads on Fox TV, their family members don't even go back that far, yet they can quote 1776. They can quote the founding fathers, but they seem to be doing everything else opposite of that.
Joining me now is Texas Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Vice-Ranking Member on the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform and Ranking Member of the House Oversight Committee. Congresswoman, it's always good to see you, my friend. And I'm going to say, I was looking at you on the monitor while you were listening to Pam Bondi. You seem to be not fazed at all. The Attorney General there, though, is telling you to tread carefully. I'm curious your response, and have some of these protests at Tesla dealerships gone too far?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to say that I participated in a Tesla takedown. That is the name of the website. And it was all about this large protest that they're calling for. And this is a nonviolent protest that they're calling for. And in fact, when I was on there, which is why the Attorney General had to say that I wasn't calling for violence, and it's ridiculous that I even have to say something like that. But because they are trying to twist our words, one of the things that I told people to do is make sure you are adhering to the laws in your area, make sure you know what it looks like to protest and to be able to raise your voices and to exercise your constitutional right to free speech. And what we see is that they want to dull our free speech rights. They want to make sure that those that are participating in the press, because we saw that there have been recent attacks specifically on this news organization, they want y'all to kind of tamp down what you say and hopefully buy into the lies instead of going out there and just telling the truth. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see that Elon Musk, that his money as it relates to Tesla, well, Tesla's tanking right now. And I'm okay with that. So just in case the slow people listening decide to click this up later, I just want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever, yet I've also never made excuse for those violent actors such as the ones on January 6th. So Pam Bondi, if you have an issue with terrorism, maybe you should talk to your boss about locking back up those guys that he let out that participated in January 6th.
Exactly. Now, how do you, inside of a country, hear a president instruct people to fight like hell just before they marched up to the Capitol building and stormed it violently, asking for the hanging of the vice president because he didn't overturn or stop the election results, because he wouldn't certify the election? How can citizens of a country know which thing is right when the president's own words go against even what Representative Crockett has stated? She has stated she's not calling for violence. She's okay with Elon Musk being boycotted, losing billions of dollars. I'm okay with that as well. But still, for the other Americans, the ones who went out there on Jan 6 and the Americans that witnessed it, how do you know what the right thing is to do when the president of the United States, the one who swears to take an oath to defend it, his own words are calling for violence? Fight like hell. What does fight like hell mean? Here's the other aspect of it. We live in the United States. I've grown up in a country my whole life where I have heard people quote the Constitution verbatim over and over and over regarding gun rights. We have all heard this, right? Second Amendment. I have the right to bear arms. But what is that connected to? What is the whole purpose? One of the purposes, if you even read and follow not just the constitutions, but the statements of prior presidents during that period when the Constitution, when this has been debated and the Bill of Rights was being debated, you will hear them say that an armed citizenry is one of the tools to fight back against a tyrannical government. That's pretty much what they debated when they affirmed the right to bear arms, right? They didn't just think about one aspect of it, your personal right to defend your home. No, actually, they were talking about defending the Constitution, defending the country that had just been established. That is one of the main purposes. So, what does Donald Trump have to say about the Second Amendment? What is that there for? Is it there to defend the country? What should armed citizens be doing? And I'm not saying that they should use violence, but I'm saying what else, is this right to bear arms for in the first place? That's a question that American people will have to answer for themselves. They will have to answer that question because Donald Trump seems to be a little wishy-washy about it. He seems to be a little wishy-washy about it. Now, does Donald Trump promote violence himself? If you ask me, I would say definitely yes. Does Donald Trump discourage violence when it's on his own behalf? Does he? I would have to say yes. He does. Personally, he does. What's Donald Trump's position on domestic terrorism when it's pointed at minorities, when it's pointed at women's right to control their own bodies, when it's pointed at people's religious rights, when it's pointed at free speech, what is he doing? What does he say? He even was talking about at one time. Donald Trump is talking about how police shouldn't even be prosecuted. Calling prosecutions against police brutality. He's actually saying it's wrong to prosecute police that have been charged with police brutality. He's actually claiming that it's wrong. Now, all of a sudden, that people have witnessed all of these things, American citizens, now it seems like they're totally flipping the script. I'm not really sure how well that goes over with American people, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't go over well.
When Pam Bondi, though, says, tread carefully, what does that even mean?
Yeah. All it means is that she's attempting to get me to say, oh, I'm going to be scared and I'm just not going to say anything, because they are willing to literally break the law. I mean, that's what we've seen them do. They are ignoring court orders. They are ignoring what our own laws are. When we look at things such as impoundment, things like that, this entire administration is rogue. And this isn't about partisanship. I keep trying to tell people that we are living in the time of good versus evil, right versus wrong. And right now, when we are looking at the black letter of the law and they are deciding, I'm just going to ignore it, then they are wrong. That is clear as day. And right now, they are going after anyone who decides that they will challenge them, whether it's the judges that are sitting on the benches, whether it is lawyers that have decided that they were going to represent their clients to the best of their ability, and most of them won against Trump and his administration. Basically, they are trying to get rid of all voices of dissent.
Okay, well, let's pick up on right versus wrong, because a new memo from the Trump administration.
Is that legal? Are we supposed to be getting rid of voices of dissent? Is that democracy? Are we supposed to crack down on voices of dissent? People that are expressing dissent against the administration violating the law. People that are expressing dissent against the administration or the president, the head of this administration, the head of the executive office's own words to the January 6th riot mob that went on his behalf. Each and every one of them said, yeah, I went up there because of Trump, because Trump said so. And then he pardoned all of them when they committed these violent acts. He specifically pardoned people that were convicted of violent acts that resulted in the maiming and death of police officers who are supposed to protect the Congress, supposed to protect the vice president, supposed to protect members, that come into the Capitol to have voices, to express their constituencies' voices, to do their job, elected officials. I mean, this is unprecedented times in the U.S., but it's also unprecedented times in the West, because this administration not only is threatening its own citizens through circumventing the Constitution, through the use of exciting violence, right? Now threatening just opinion, public opinion, the right to dissent. That's freedom of speech. That's number one. That's number one, the First Amendment. That's number one. So where does the administration stand on the First Amendment and the Second Amendment? That's something American people are going to have to review and discuss. And I'm sure you all are doing it. I'm just letting you know, and I'm doing my part as an American citizen that lives outside of the U.S. to cover this and to give feedback on what's going on outside, and ask for your feedback regarding what is going on the inside of the U.S. Now, let me pull something up real quick here. Let me see, 2 seconds. Boom. Can I pull this up on here? I'm sure I can. 2 seconds, y'all. One. Window capture. right? Let's see here. Right, here we go. So let me see if I can pull this up on the screen. All righty. Now we have this. We got ChatGPT open. Now let me go over to ChatGPT. Here we go. What is the Second Amendment? Did I spell that right? Amendment and its purpose. Is it to protect? Is it to protect against a tyrannical government? What information exists from the founding fathers regarding this? Now let's check this out, y'all. Second Amendment deals with the right to have armed militias. Right now, let's see this. Still pulling the information up. 2 seconds, y'all. Okay. So still okay. It's still pulling up more. That's good. There's a lot of information on this. Let's see here. Let me know if you can hear this too.
The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution states, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." Purpose of the Second Amendment. Yes, one of the primary reasons for the Second Amendment was to protect against a tyrannical government. The Founding Fathers believed that an armed citizenry would serve as a check on potential government overreach. However, it also served other purposes, including 1. Self-defense, the right of individuals to protect themselves and their property. 2. Defense against tyranny, the ability of citizens to resist a government that becomes oppressive. 3. Preserving state militias, ensuring that states could maintain militias independent of federal control. 4. National defense, citizens could form militias to defend against foreign threats. What the Founding Fathers said. Many of the Founding Fathers explicitly linked the right to bear arms with resisting tyranny. James Madison, Federalist No. 46, 1788. The advantage of being armed, which the Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation, forms a barrier against the enterprises of ambition. Madison argued that an armed populace could resist a tyrannical government. Thomas Jefferson, letter to William S. Smith, 1787. What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Jefferson saw arms as a safeguard against government oppression. George Mason, Virginia Ratifying Convention, 1788. To disarm the people is the best and most effective way to enslave them. Mason warned against government attempts to remove arms from the people. Alexander Hamilton, Federalist No. 29, 1788. If circumstances should at any time oblige the government to form an army of any magnitude, that army can never be formidable to the liberties of the people while there is a large body of citizens, little if at all inferior to them in discipline and use of arms. Hamilton argued that an armed populace could counterbalance a standing army. Patrick Henry, Virginia Ratifying Convention, 1788. The great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able may have a gun. Henry believed widespread gun ownership was essential to modern interpretations. The debate over the Second Amendment continues today. Some argue it protects individual gun ownership, while others emphasize its connection to state militias. The Supreme Court in District of Columbia v. Heller, 2008, ruled that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to own firearms, separate from militia service. Would you like me to pull any more historical references on this?
Now, there you have it, folks. I mean, this is what is actively going on right now in the United States. And myself, to those that might think or assume or otherwise believe that my comments are to incite violence, no. My comments are to protect the Constitution of the United States and against even a tyrannical government. As the founding fathers of the United States, numerous ones had already discussed prior, specific, directly regarding the Second Amendment. I mean, it's really just ridiculous how anyone could see it any different. But let's just review this one more again and see what it says. Now I'm going to read it back. Yes, one of the primary reasons for the Second Amendment was to protect against a tyrannical government. It's very simple. The founding fathers believed that an armed citizenry would serve as a check on potential government overreach. However, it also served other purposes. Self-defense, the right of individuals to protect themselves and their property. Against who and what? Against who and what? Defense against tyranny, the ability of citizens to resist a government that becomes oppressive. That sounds about right. I mean, it sounds about right to me. I don't see any conflict with the Constitution. I don't see how upholding the Constitution has anything to do with inciting violence. That's just too general of a term. You see, if you believe in police brutality and you say, go on the microphone and you say, yeah, when they, and back in the old days, if they didn't act right, we would just slam their hood. Whatever happened to that? Slam their hood into a car, into the car doors. You put them into the police car. Is that inciting violence? I mean, you tell me. Preserving state militias, ensuring that states could maintain militias independent of federal control. Yes, ensuring that states could maintain militias independent of federal control. National defense. Citizens could form militias to defend against foreign threats. Yes, also. And this one seems like there might be a multitude of reasons. This might be all of the damn above happening right now. Self-defense. Is your right to defend yourself? Do you have that right? Defense against tyranny. The ability of citizens to resist a government that becomes oppressive. Do you have that right under the Constitution? Yes. Under the Constitution, you have that right. Preserving state militias ensure that states could maintain militias independently of federal control. You have that right. Under the Constitution as a citizen of the United States of America. And until something like that is changed in Congress, that is the law. What the founding fathers said. Now here you get to qualify from the actual people who discussed it back then. James Madison in Federalist #1, right? You can look these records up. You can look these dialogues up. It's just like when you go to Congress today, they pass laws, but guess what? They record their conversations and their debate regarding it, and they publish it, right? Their reasoning to qualify what laws they're passing. That happens every day Congress goes into session. And there's similar things happening. The same goes on in the Senate. James Madison, Federal number 46, 1788. The advantage of being armed. This is what he believed, a founding father, James Madison. So if you ever hear his name invoked by anybody, this is one of the things that he said. And armed, in terms of the Second Amendment specifically, the advantage of being armed, which the Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation. That's what makes the U.S. different. Forms a barrier against the enterprise of ambition. Sounds like he's talking about Donald Trump pretty much. Very ambitious privately. Elon Musk, very privately ambitious about their money. They get their money. They get their grifting on more than anything else, because they definitely not asking Congress to do much these days. not for the American people, for themselves and the wealthy. Yes, we've heard that. Madison argued that an armed populace could resist a tyrannical government. Thomas Jefferson, letter to William S. Smith, 1787. This is what Thomas Jefferson believed about the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. What country can preserve its liberties? What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. Is that inciting violence? Is that inciting violence? You tell me. George Mason, Virginia, ratifying convention, 1788. To disarm the people is the best and most effective way to enslave them. You know, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people understand the history of the United States and slavery, right? That was a very real thing in the United States, not a fake thing, something that really, really happened. Okay, so those words should hit deep to anyone that profited from slavery or is a descendant of someone in their family that went through slavery in the United States. I mean, to me personally, those words. 2 seconds. I'm sorry. I'm getting some notifications. They want me to affirm some things. This is, there's a lot of security on YouTube these days, and just to be able to do a daggone live, I had to go through all kinds of stuff here. But Alexander Hamilton, right, argued that an armed populace could counterbalance a standing army. I mean, this is their own words. This is their own words. If circumstances should at any time oblige the government to form an army of any magnitude, that army can never be formidable to the liberties of the people. While there is a large body of citizens, little, if at all, inferior to them in discipline and use of arms. I mean, they're telling you what this right is about, and it is very, very specific to tyrannical governments having the right to fight back against a tyrannical government. I mean, that's just what it is. Patrick Henry, Virginia ratifying convention, 1788. The great object is that every man be armed. Everyone who is able may have a gun. Henry believed widespread gun ownership was essential to liberty. I'm pretty sure Trump and Elon Musk, you're going to start, and from them and their stooges, you're going to start hearing a lot of pushback from them about gun ownership. I'm pretty sure that's what you're going to hear. And so there you have it, folks. I just wanted to touch on that because I find that to be very, very useful in examining things right now, the political strife in the U.S. right now. And I don't know how anybody could avoid this because we live in a country, the United States, we've been brought up in it. We know it, but citizens that are grown up in the U.S. and citizens that have studied the constitutional law, know very well what those gun rights were for and have been stated to be for by the founding fathers. The Supreme Court has not done anything to restrain this Constitution, the Second Amendment, right? They stand by it so far, and if they changed it for some reason, they would be going against these founding fathers. Just so you know, and more. These are just examples that we read off. Now, let me go back to what we were checking out earlier here and see what we can come up with.
Administration in part directs the heads of the Justice and Homeland Security Departments to seek sanctions against attorneys and law firms who engage in frivolous, unreasonable, and vexatious litigation. I've never used the word vexatious, but there you go, against the United States, or in matters that come before federal agencies. And I remind viewers, you are a trained lawyer. So in your legal expertise, is this memo by President Trump legal?
I mean, listen, he can write as many memos as he wants to write. I mean, a memo is just a memo. But as it relates to the guidance that they are trying to lay out for the Department of Justice, again, this is them going rogue. We already have provisions that lay out when someone should be able to go after someone and determine that they are vexatious or determine that they are bringing frivolous lawsuits, and therefore there should be sanctions. That's normal. I mean, listen, I've got plenty of crazies that love to sue, so I completely understand it. I completely agree with it, and ultimately it is up to the judge to determine. But here's the thing: the Trump administration is losing. There are over 100 cases going on right now, and what we see is that we've got people like Attorney General James in New York that is winning. So what did he do in retaliation? He decided that he wanted to strip her of her security clearance. Same thing with Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg was the one that was able to end up making this president a felon by having the audacity to go forward on these 34 felony cases that now he is convicted of. And ultimately he was convicted by a jury. And he had the opportunity to have terrible lawyers. He's always had terrible lawyers that lose their bar cards. And just so that everybody knows, listen, you can go and Google Rudy Giuliani. He lost his bar card as well as he lost all of his money. I still have all of my bar cards, so I'm going to just put that out there. So, who knows what will happen if they continue to go down this road. And I do applaud those lawyers that have worked for the Department of Justice and said, you know what, my oath means something. And so I am going to honor that oath, and I am going to leave this office because I will not violate the law. I will not violate my oath. I will hold on to my bar card, and we will see how many people in this Department of Justice are able to maintain their bar cards if they're going to continue to do these rogue things and ignore judges.
Let me ask you about the New York Times, which reports the IRS is preparing to reach an agreement with ICE to help locate immigrants for deportation by handing over, not just verifying, home addresses for people who've been ordered to leave the United States. These are undocumented immigrants who are paying taxes in this country. Is this going to just force more people to live in the shadows?
Alex, you can't make this up. Listen. Okay, there are those of us that believe in the humanity of things and believe in doing things in due order, okay? But here's the deal. You've painted these people as like the demons. And so it's like we got to get the demons that are dangerous and ruining our country out of here, right? But you're going to the IRS. You know why? Because undocumented people have been contributing up to $100 billion in taxes. So now if you're going to say, you know what, and mind you, these people are told that if you are here undocumented, you are still required to pay taxes. And so guess what? We get up to $100 billion.
So what this means, $100 billion, this means that these quote unquote undocumented immigrants, they're working jobs. I don't know if you've ever been to any place where they grow food in the U.S., California, where they have huge farms, Midwest, anywhere, Florida even, down south. I don't know if you've actually seen what type of people are actually doing this work. I don't know if you've actually seen how hard this work is. It's obvious many Americans do not really know. These people pay taxes and don't get anything from it. And yet these are the people being targeted. You know what that does to the price of your eggs, your juice, your vegetables, all of these things? What do you want to be? Do you want to be a farmer? If you want to be a farmer, no problem. If you have a plan to farm right now, I don't see why that would be a problem. But the problem is that none of the people that have an issue with these people want to be farmers. None of them want to put their hands in the dirt day to day. None of them. Do you understand what type of work this is? This is the closest work in the United States to slavery. Make no mistake about it. Do you want that job? Okay, that can be debated. How it affects the economy can be debated. Whose job it takes can be debated. But the truth is that 100 billion, you're actually going to be losing. That 100 billion was actually going into your pocket. It was bolstering your Social Security. They don't get Social Security. It was bolstering your life. And now that's going to be taken away. I mean, I'm only laughing because of how idiotic it is. You have to be an idiot to go for this stuff. It's one thing to be misinformed, but you can't claim to be misinformed again and again and again and again and again. You can't claim that. Once you have been informed over and over and over and over again, and you still believe it, something's wrong with you. Something's terribly wrong with how your brain works. And we do know that a lot of this is just based on bigotry. It's not based on logic. It's not based on rational thinking. It's not based on being informed. It's just looking at somebody and say, hey, I don't like your kind. Okay, well, I wish they would have done that when slavery was totally legal, because I wish they would have looked at some African Americans and said, we don't like your kind. Get off the slave plantation. We don't want slavery anymore. But they didn't. See, they didn't. But these jobs that they're talking about are the closest jobs to slavery. They're the closest jobs. These people, this is no different than do you know how hard these people fought against disbanding sharecropper, the unjust sharecropping that was going on in the US? People, it is crazy. These people didn't want to abolish that stuff, but now they want to abolish it all of a sudden. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. So kudos to Crockett on her analysis and on her representation, and kudos to the voters that voted for her, because she's one of the champions right now leading the Democratic Party. And one of the things I love about her is she's making it very clear the Constitution is not a Democrat or Republican conversation. It has nothing to do with you as a Democrat. It has zero to do with you as a Republican. It only has something to do with you as a citizen. Period. Your citizen rights. Your basic foundation citizen rights. That's all it has something to do with. And people are still trying to make this a Republican Democrat issue. What have the Democrats done lately for me? What have your ass done lately? You know the Constitution. You know when your rights are being threatened. You know the prescription inside of the Constitution. You've heard the founding fathers speak about that prescription. What you gonna do about it? What are you going to do about it, American citizen? Republican, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stand up for your rights? That's what I want to know. All the people that was out there arguing about the gun rights, hey, what you going to do about it? You know what the Second Amendment is about. What you going to do about it? And I have no doubt, I have zero doubt that many of you will do something about it. I have no doubt that many of you do want to uphold the Constitution. And I have no doubt that many of you actually agree with this. And to belittle it, to be inciting violence is bullshit. I'm inciting the goddamn Constitution of the United States of America and Americans to know it, read it, and take it seriously. Your rights. That's what I'm inciting. Every single right inside of that bad boy is what I'm inciting. You see, yeah. So on that note, I'm going to take off for a minute. Everybody that's listening, press the like button. Everybody that comes to hear this video, press the like button. Everybody share it if you can share it. Now, I understand this damn government right now, the administration, seems to be highly oppressive, out to punish people for exercising their own constitutional rights. I understand that. So I understand a lot of people are afraid, and I also understand the privilege I have as an American citizen that lives abroad, that lives in a country that respects human and civil rights. I have the right to freedom of speech. Even here, I may not even have the, I may not, this is one of the countries where every citizen does, we don't even have armed militias here. We don't even have that right. That's not in that way. Just like Madison said, just like some of the founding fathers knew, it's not every country where the citizens have the right to bear arms. The United States of America is one of the few that has always had that right, that have always had the right to combat against a tyrannical government. That's what makes that country different. And if you don't start taking your rights seriously, watch how they just keep on get stripped. Watch how they keep getting stripped. And here's my warning. You might be comfortable with waiting this thing out. But there's a lot of people in the country that while they have to wait for Congress and the Senate to uphold the Constitution, a lot of those people are going to be thrown out of their homes. A lot of those people are going to go starving because everybody is not privileged enough to survive this blatant disregard of the Constitution. And that's really where it gets scary, y'all. So my suggestion to American people is drop the divisiveness. Drop the divisiveness about race. Drop the divisiveness about ethnicity. Drop all these side conversations, all these silly ass conversations, and ask yourself, do you want rights? Do you want your Constitution to be upheld by the President of the United States? Do you want that or not? You can have all the bickering, but that's a First Amendment right. That might be taken from you. It's being challenged right now, right here, live. What's going to be next? How long can you wait it out? How long can you lose a little bit of your pension, lose a little bit of your monthly budget to pay your rent, to feed your family, to clothe yourself, to pay whatever other bills you have? How long can it stretch? Congress, whether you're Republican or Democrat, you better start thinking about it, because if you're not thinking about it right now, it's you that's responsible for civil war in the United States of America. And let me tell you, that's the last thing I would want, because every government that hates the United States of America would love it, and they will definitely play a role. You better believe it. You better believe it. To the Americans that are out there in the streets, I wish I could show some of your videos right now. I didn't have any time to collect them. And you know how YouTube be on brothers like me. They want to know every single thing. Where did you get this? How do you make your videos? Show me how you make your videos. Can you do that? Can you do this? Blah, 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 blah. What is this about? The YouTube, you're in, I should be boycotting your ass, as a matter of fact. You know, YouTube should be the main one making sure the news gets out. But for some reason, they're not approaching this algorithm thing. They're not worried about who gets to see the demonstrations and who's not, who's blocking information. Hey, y'all, I'm not surprised either. I mean, I noticed some things happening in the algorithms months ago, and I've even been saying it in my programming. I've noticed it. It's something weird about it. And lo and behold, other people are starting to talk about it too. So stay strong. We are aware from the few platforms that are able to get the news out. We are aware that Americans are demonstrating, and we are aware that Americans are scared for their lives. They're scared for their parents' lives, the elderly's lives, the children's lives, and their lives. And the world's going to keep on becoming more aware. On that note, I'm out, y'all. Share the video, share it, and I wish for the best And I know that